Welcome to the Leicester Fan TV podcast. Today we've got Sam and Jay with me today talking about everything Leicester City, but there's three topics I want to talk about today mainly. So the first one is the season to begin with. How do you reckon the season's gone so far? Obviously it's not been the best with the league position being bottom of the league, but what do you think?
I think I'll kick it off. It's been a poor start to the season. There's no other way around it. We're at 1 point bottom of the Premier League, lost 5 games in a row, and we're doing pretty poor. The past 11 teams to be in the bottom position with the amount of points we're on. 8 of them have been relegated, so it is relegation form at the moment. Obviously, we've had the passing of the Queen recently, which has meant we've not played Aston Villa recently, so no one knew how we'd do against that game. And obviously now we're going straight again after that into a really tough opponent, Spurs next. So.
Yeah, I'm on the same lines. I think that there has been some ups and a lot of downs this season. We've seen the Leicester we know and love and the team that can play the ball fast and get goals. But then we've also seen a side where we just absolutely crumble under, I don't know if it's pressure or our play style, but there's something just not quite right at the moment at Leicester. And I'm not sure many fans can hit the nail on the head and say what that is.
Yeah, obviously being bottom of the table doesn't make a great start to the season, but there was obviously reason behind it. Only bringing one outfield player in, and obviously a keeper, which we'll probably never see play. But anywhere else, really, Rodgers really hasn't been backed in the window with the money, which can be the club's fault. But then again, it's his fault as well, maybe, for not bringing the right players in and just spending too much last season.
I don't think Rodgers needed to do the backing. He didn't need the money realistically this season. The team he had, is a good team that, they got us fifth twice a couple seasons ago, and, we got quite far semi-finals in the European Cup Conference against Roma, wasn't it? Unfortunately, we did lose in that game, but that team, they're all there. I think you can just see in the whole mentality under Rodgers at the moment is they don't want to play for him anymore. I think that's obvious what's going on, that the players don't want to play for Rodgers. Rodgers doesn't want to be there as a manager anymore. We've seen highlights of him when he first came in the first couple of seasons where he's really energetic, celebrating, talkative. This season, we concede goal after goal after goal. We conceded 5 against Brighton last time out, and he's emotionless and he does nothing on the touchline. I'm surprised he's still here as manager, to be honest. I think we're going to get thumped against Spurs, in all honesty. And, I think skipping the Villa game, obviously, due to circumstances we can't, change, is going to be a bit harsh because, Villa would have been the easier team to go into. Going to Spurs, who sit third in the league, going into this game is going to be a really tough match.
I think when you say Rodgers hasn't been backed, I understand it for this window, but you have to look at the point that he has spent £200 million since he has been at Leicester, which is a lot of money. Imagine, think about it, Leicester City spending £200 million in the space of 3 years. That is a lot of money. And for saying that the money he has spent let's just talk about last year's transfer window. You've got Daka, who is a prospect but not really getting anywhere into the team at the moment. He scored a good goal against Brighton and maybe we'll see more of him, but at the moment he's been here for a year and he's not exactly stood out yet. You've got Soumare, who in the summer and at the start of the season was not even in the squad because there were talks about him not even going to be at Leicester City and going to Monaco. He's now not gone to Monaco and somehow managed to get straight into that starting 11 after not being in the squad. You've got Vestergaard, who doesn't make the squad. You've got Bertrand, who's been injured for God knows how long. So you have to look at it from a business point of view. Why hasn't Rodgers been backed? And the answer to that is he has been, and it hasn't worked. So the club don't want to spend that much more money on players that potentially aren't going to do anything.
But you've seen in the programme from, I don't know what game I can't remember, but even Top was saying that they're in a situation financially that means we can't spend money, which for me, from the other point of view, is that Rodgers hasn't been back, but the money's been given.
I don't think he needs to spend money though, because if you look at our squad now, there's not too much difference between the squad that we have now and the squad that's come fifth and eighth. There's not too much difference. There's no reason we should be bottom of the league now with that squad.
We've only added to the team. Yes, we've lost Casper and Fofana, and you're two really good players in that team. But replacing a keeper is dead easy. We could have signed. Dubravka has gone to Man United online. He would have been a great replacement for Casper at the very least.
Yeah.
Nick Pope, why don't we get him? We knew Casper wanted to go. Casper left us in the gutters, leaving 3 days before the before the Premier League start. So, that was a bit of a shame. We knew Fofana was going for 3 weeks to Chelsea. Just because the pen wasn't on the paper, we knew he was going to go. Why did we wait so long to bring in just one defender? We heard Rodgers complain that he wanted to bring in at least 2 defenders, but he knew Fofana was going. The club just needed to give the money and spend it. We've had £200 million, and like you said, that top slide back. He's saying, "Oh, we need to balance the books financially." You've given Rodgers. He spent 55 million last season, which in the football world, in retrospective, it isn't loads of money anymore. But the wages those players are on are ridiculous. If you add it up, there's probably £500,000 to £1 million each week going on dead players like Vestergaard, Sumer, Perez even. He's barely breaking up team. He's on ridiculous money. Daka, he's starting to become decent, but players like Nacho's on a lot of money. Vardy, he's a great player, but he's very, off the ball at the moment. He's, taking a lot of money in at the moment. The club wants to know where, we can balance the books. We're spending money on a lot of players we don't need at the moment, and we need to bring in better players. It'd be surprising to know how much this Mount Fires is on.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, again, another point that I'd say is maybe not Rodgers' fault, is that's the club's fault for putting players on too high wages. Maybe Rodgers has asked for these players to come in and actually want them to be in the club, but then the club is the ones, and is it Rookin that's given these wages to them on stupid wages? That means that they don't want to leave. Vestergaard, for instance, had 3 different clubs apparently going through. He said no to all of them because he's on such a high wage.
Who would though?
No, I know that's the reason. But obviously moving on a bit more to more of the positive side of the transfers then, and the season altogether, we have finally got the new coach in for set pieces, which we did struggle with last season, and the new phase guy that's come in, he's actually going to be hopefully playing against Spurs. So what's your kind of take on both of these new acquisitions?
If I was to, I'm going to say it's bittersweet because we've lost Fofana, who is one of the best defenders, in the Premier League at the moment. So I can't say anything about Fires at the moment. He looks like, in my eyes, he just looks like Soyuncu, who we've already got at the club. So I'm not quite sure why we went in for him. Again, it's because Rodgers is falling out with Soyuncu for whatever reason, doesn't trust him to be in the squad anymore. But again, it's £15 million we've spent that, could cost us again. And like I say, we're interested to know how much he's on a week. He's probably on 40, 50, 60 grand a week at Leicester. As for the new set piece coach, obviously we know he had visa problems coming into the country and whatnot. We should have sorted that out ages ago. It'd be interesting to see what he does because, again, we're not the best. We're still not the best at set pieces. We're very poor at conceding, and I don't think much coaching is going to do that because, again, I'm going to pin it a bit on Danny Ward. He doesn't man his box. He's not tall enough. He's not strong enough. He's never going to jump for the ball. He doesn't communicate in the box. And this is where I go back. We should have just signed a proper keeper rather than Danny Ward.
Yeah, I think the new set piece coach will be good and it will come good over time. I think it was 3 months, not too late, but it should have happened 3 months ago when we were in the pre-season. That is the perfect time to bring in a new coach who brings in different styles of play and how you defend, how you attack, and sort everything out. I think now that we're in this bit of a mess at the start of the season, it's going to be a bit of a task to get everything rolling again. I don't actually think set pieces have been that much of an issue so far this season, but it's always great to have, if we do have that bit of issue in there. Talking of Danny Ward, and I don't want to go on for too long, I agree when you say about he's got similar issues to what Casper had. He doesn't command his box, he doesn't command the defenders, he doesn't come out for the ball, he doesn't seem so confident on his feet. But you have to think about this. How long has Danny Ward been at the club working next to Kasper Schmeichel? And you have to say probably around about 6 years or so, maybe more, maybe a little bit less.
He's getting taught what he's doing.
Yeah, he will have learned and adapted and took everything that Kasper Schmeichel did, and that would be his play style as well. You can't have a keeper working next to a keeper and expect them to be completely different, because the way they train is exactly the same. The way they get told to play is exactly the same. So I think a lot of people should have known that Danny Ward would have brought the same issues that Kasper Schmeichel had, and if not more. because
Plus,
he's
he's
not
never
experienced.
played. He's never played a Premier League game before joining Leicester. He never played a Premier League game at Liverpool. I'm pretty sure he never played until last season for Leicester, and he's been a professional player, air quotes, for the past 10 years, taking his paycheck, sitting on the bench. So it's a strange one, and again, I don't understand why. For me, I think I think everyone on this table will agree. I think majority of Leicester fans will agree. Iverson should be in the in the lineup from now on after Danny Ward conceded.
I've already said that from the beginning. Don't get me wrong. We didn't see how Danny Ward played before I said it, but I did say out of all the keepers we had before we brought Aston Villa in as well, that Iverson should be that guy to go in there. Maybe not. Maybe he doesn't do well. Maybe he goes in for the first game and lets 3 goals in. But now you've seen how bad Ward is. You've really got to show some sort of impact from Rodgers, saying like, okay, yes, I might have made a mistake. I'm not. You can't just keep boarding that goal because you want to be right.
It depends the mannerism we saw against Brighton. Even if we do go and lose 3-0 to Spurs, Danny Ward had awful mannerism against Brighton. He was telling his team to F off, because they weren't doing good. He wasn't commanding the box. He was doing silly mistakes, kicking the ball left, right and centre. He didn't know what to do. He didn't know what he was doing himself. That last goal, before it went in, the free kick, I said to Phil, Danny Ward's standing way too far left, and there goes like, if their player has any common sense, he's going to put it in the other corner, and he did. Danny Ward was nowhere near it. Yes, it was top bins, but again, Danny Ward, I don't know what he's been learning under Casper. He's been at Liverpool as well, so he's come from Liverpool, a great club, to Leicester, great training facilities, and it should be like one of the top in England. So I'm not quite sure what he's picked up. And like you say, Iverson for me just needs to squeeze into that team. And if it's against Spurs, it's against Spurs. It's a tough one to start against, but I think if it's Danny Ward, it's going to be a lot more mistakes than Brighton.
Yeah, you could also say that Danny Ward, you can say that I think Iverson would be a better choice because he's younger. He has been on loan last season. He's probably a bit more hungrier than Danny Ward is at the moment. Because Danny Ward, let's not beat around the bush. He has just been a player who has not been ambitious, because he's been at Leicester for a long time. He's not decided, I'm going to go on loan to this team. I'm not going to go do anything to try and get into the first team. He's just sat there and happily been the second team keeper. And for a keeper to do that for that long and then be pushed into the number 1 spot, I just don't think he's ambitious enough. And I think you can tell that he's not really hungry enough to do well in that number 1 spot as well.
Yeah, and then kind of going through to the main situation at the moment, and it's the Rodgers situation. I think, in my eyes, I was going to say Rodgers out after the Villa game, or even before the Villa game, if Danny Ward was still in goal, because this is the point now where you're 6 or 7 games in, you've not even won a game. Something needs changing, and if Rodgers is staying, he has to make them impactful changes in bringing Iverson in there. You've got to maybe drop someone like Youri Tielemans at times. You've got to be maybe dropping Vardy at times.
Brendan Rodgers will not do that.
No, he won't.
He's too stubborn as a manager to do that. We've seen that for the past. Any neutral fans probably will say, what's going on with Leicester City? Why are they not playing well? It is Brendan Rodgers. That's the reason we're not playing well. You change the manager, everything changes. That's just how it is at clubs. He's lost the momentum of just everything at the moment to do with Leicester City. He's lost momentum of the owners. With Rudkin, rumours are that he walks out of board meetings with the owners and that, because he gets, upset and angry at decisions. He's lost his mojo almost at Leicester, because he feels like he's not had the backing, and I can agree that to some extent he's probably not had the backing this season. But who would back him after his signings last season? They weren't good signings at all. To no extent did any of those 4 or 5 players actually make a difference. And the one that did, Lookman, we let go again. He came in on loan and we refused to sign him for 14 million, and we were struggling to find a winger. And I think it was that Boga from Atalanta we were trying to get. Again, he refused to come to Leicester on deadline day, and so we're stuck with no one at the moment, unless we can loan in or bring a free agent in. We're stuck with no one, and Rodgers is just kind of like at the helm of that. He's not really making the best decisions at the moment, and he wants out. I think Rodgers is Rodgers out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the one thing that really gets on my nerves with Rodgers at the moment is the fact that he constantly, after every game, there's always something he wants to pick on. He's moaned a couple of times about not being back to the transfer market. He hasn't had the players he wanted. He's said stuff saying the fans need to get behind the team because it's not helping. It's creating anxiety around the dressing room, which to some extent I agree, but also like they're the fans that we pay. They're allowed to voice their opinion. If fans want to boo, they can boo. If fans want to clap, they will clap. And I think it's getting to the point now where, with what he's saying, he's throwing the unders under the bus, he's throwing the players under the bus, he's dropping players for no reason, but he's constantly moaning. And I'm sat here thinking, you're paid £10 million a year. Just stop talking about this in the press and go and do something in training and for the next game to sort it out. He's acting as if he has no control about what can be done to fix anything in this team, but that is complete opposite. He's the fifth highest paid manager. He's paid more than Eddie Howe. He's paid more than Frank Lampard. He's paid more than Steven Gerrard. He's paid a lot more than a lot of other clubs with more ambition than us. So I think he really needs to figure out what he needs to do to sort this out, or Top needs to understand that this isn't working, because we saw it when Vichai was the owner. Ranieri just won the league. He went on a poor streak, didn't get no hesitation. You're gone. You're not performing to the level we want. Same with Puel. Started underperforming. You're gone. Shakespeare. You're gone. Now, Top needs to realise that we're going one way at the moment, and that way is down. And I don't see any other way of us changing without getting rid of Rodgers. And I want him to do well, but I think, like Sam said, at the moment, I think Rodgers is Rodgers out. I think he wants to take that paycheck and be gone. Because let's not, like I said, let's not beat around the bush again. If you were to be fired now, and you had a £20 million payout, you would not care. No one on this earth would care if you got fired, if you're getting £20 million to be fired. You'd almost, like Rodgers is,
can go and sit
he almost is trying to get fired.
Of his life, if he did that. I think from the fans' perspective, I'm embarrassed at the moment, because how can a manager be on £10 million, the fifth highest in the Premier League, and be sitting bottom of the league? And I'm embarrassed for the club that they've not decided to sack him yet, regardless if they don't think they've got the money, don't give him the buyout clause of however ridiculous it is. There's rumours going around that it's £10 to £20 million to sack him. That's how much it's going to cost. Don't give him that option if you're not going to be willing to sack him at the price. You've given the price that's what he'll do. If he's a bad manager, you'll sack him. He's got a worse record at the moment than Claude Puel did, and we sacked Puel after less than what he's done. Rodgers is worse than Puel, and he's still at Leicester. I know it's by fine margins, but he still has done, on pen and paper, worse than Puel has, and he's on more wages, and he's still here at bottom of the league, taking his ridiculous money week in, week out.
I think the club should realise, after the whole Rodgers saga, that there is one way they should be focusing on how to deal with managers, and one way only. You give every manager you have in the club, you give them a 1-year contract, and you say to them, you've got 1 year at this club. If you want an extension, you want another year, you work for it and you earn it. And then you keep rolling 1-year contracts, because we've given Rodgers a 3-year contract or a 4-year contract. So at that point, he's settled for 4 years, and he's not gonna walk away because he doesn't get his payout. No one's gonna walk away. He's going to want to get fired. So if he wants to get fired and he wants that payout, then he's going in the right direction. And so I think next time we get a manager in, just do rolling contracts. Don't give them 2-year, 3-year contracts. Make them work for it. Make them earn it, and then they'll continue to perform because they want to keep that job on.
Yeah, and then just before we do end, the Spurs game coming up on this weekend. I'm not going to ask for predictions, because obviously it's going to be quite hard to predict.
I can give you my prediction if you want me.
Well, no, I'm all right, thanks. But what's your kind of quick take on it, Jake, on kind of the situation with Spurs? Obviously, Villa we missed out on, means that Spurs is an even bigger game for Rodgers. What's your kind of quick take on it?
I think Villa was a game where that was the perfect game at the perfect time, because we were in a rut. Villa are in a bit of a rut. It's a time where both clubs need that win. So it really shows the passion between both teams. Who wants it more?
I'm going to have to disagree with you there. I think there was a bad time to play Villa. They should have beat Man City. Again, VAR gave them a goal disallowed, which should have stood. They should have beat Man City, who would have ruined their winning streak. I think we kind of got lucky not playing Villa. I think we would have lost to them.
But Villa is an easier game than Spurs.
Oh, 100%, I agree.
So that's why it's a better opportunity.
We've had a tough start to the season, but we've dropped loads of points, where we should have picked up. We should be on about 8 points so far. We drew to Brentford, Southampton, both in winning positions. Chelsea had a 10-man team for 60 minutes. And we should have got at least a draw against them.
Our expected points, yes, it's only expected, but the points we should have by now are a lot higher than what we do have now. And
which is why I think Rodgers should be out. Because why is he the manager right now if he's dropping points? We've seen it before. How are we 2-0 up and then we concede 2 goals to Brentford? And Rodgers is going through some like, let's bring on a defender to keep this point. It's like, no, he did that against Southampton and they go and score 2 goals. It's the same thing week in, week out. No matter how we're winning, even if I'm never confident as a Leicester fan at the moment that if we get the opening goal, we're going to keep that, because for the past year we've never done it. You can go back through all the games that we've played, and we do drop points left, right, and centre. And at the end of the day, I'm sorry, when we all after most matches say, well, Rodgers did this, so why did he bring on this defender when we're 2-0 up? Why did he take off Daka for Vardy? It's the same sub should have been the other way around kind of thing. It's obvious at the moment that I think going into Spurs, it's going to be a really tough game. And, they're sitting third in the league. I think we're going to be 1 point out of 21 points after Spurs.
Yeah.
That's why I said that the Villa game did come up a better opportunity, because now we've got Spurs, which is a much harder game. You say Villa, they were on the up, but they did well against Man City, but at the same time, they're still in a bit of a rut. They performed really well against Man City, yes, but at the same time, I would much rather now, where we are sat now, at 1 point bottom of the table, prefer us to play Aston Villa at home.
I agree.
At home than Tottenham Hotspur, who are joint second away.
I 100% agree. I'd rather play Aston Villa. I was just saying that they're on form to, they've got the confidence to go into we're still coming off a 5-2 loss to Brighton after after scoring first goal inside the minute and bouncing back and getting back on a level 2-2 with Daka scoring. So I think, like I say, Villa would have been an easier opponent to play than Spurs, and I agree with that 100%. But at the end of the day, every team we play is tough because they're in the Premier League. No team that's in the Premier League are an easy opponent. We've seen that. I mean, at the moment, any club coming to Leicester, regardless of who they are going to fancy, coming and getting 3 points against us, home or away.
Yeah, obviously that was the first episode of the podcast. Make sure to check out the next episode. Obviously, this is going to be on TalkSport, so hopefully you can listen in on with this, and hope we'll be doing this every Monday going forward while recording it anyway. But appreciate you both coming on today, and hopefully we get at least a point against Spurs this weekend.
We'll see you next week.
Cheers.